بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. So last time we began Kitab al-Siyam and covered the first few bits, and then we got to the issue of the beginning of Ramadan and the sighting and so on. So like we said last time, every Ramadan there are always two debates that happen amongst the Muslims. The first is about why do we have to sight the moon in the first place? Why don't we just use calculations? The second one then is about is it one sighting for the whole ummah, or does every country have its own sighting? The second issue we'll take next week. So we'll take the one about calculations tonight, inshallah. So, first of all the madhahib are agreed that Ramadan begins with the sighting of the moon, and likewise Ramadan ends, Eid is announced with the sighting of the moon. Okay, based on the hadith we covered last time, and we're going to come back to tonight. Sumu li ru'yatihi wa aftiru li ru'yatihi. You fast based on the sighting, and you break the fast based on the sighting. So this is the view of all the madhahib, all four schools. In fact, it's almost ijma', except for a handful of scholars. They've all said that the moon must be sighted. Just to give you an example, Imam Malik rahimahullah, he said, إِنَّ مَنْ يَصُومُ بِالْحِسَابِ لَا يُقْتَدَى بِهِ. The one who fasts based on calculations, in other words, he doesn't base his fasting on the physical sighting, he is not to be followed. لَا يُقْتَدَى بِهِ. Likewise, Ibn Taymiyyah, I didn't have time to translate the quote, so I just put it here. By the time you get the slides, I will have, inshallah, I'll put the translation on there. But anyway, likewise, Ibn Taymiyyah, he said, وَقَدْ أَجْمَعَ الْمُسْلِمُونَ عَلَيْهِ وَلَا يُعْرَفُ فِيهِ خِلَافٌ قَدِيمٌ أَصْلًا وَلَا خِلَافٌ حَدِيثٌ. That this is the ijma' of the Muslims. They've all agreed upon the physical sighting, and there is not known of any khilaf in the past, in the first place, nor any new modern disagreement amongst the scholars. إلا أن بعض المتأخرين من المتفقهة الحادثين بعد المئة الثالثة زعم أنه إذا غم الحلال جاز للحاسب أن يعمل في حق نفسه بالحساب. So there's not known of any difference of opinion, except that some of the later scholars, and we'll talk about who they are, they claim that it is that if the hilal is obscured by clouds, that it's permissible for the astronomer or the mathematician himself to, in regards to himself, to use calculations. فإن كان الحساب دل على الرؤية صام وإلا فلا. So if the calculations indicated that the sighting was possible, then he fasts, and if they indicated that it's not possible to see the moon, then they would not. وهذا القول وإن كان مقيدا بالإغمام ومختص بالحاسب فهو شاذ مسبوق بالإجماع على خلافه. And this opinion, even though it's constrained by the moon being cloudy or being clouded, and it's specific to the astronomer, it's still shadh, irregular, or let's say a strange opinion. And anyway, it's been preceded by the consensus before it. فَأَمَّا اتِّبَاعُ ذَلِكَ فِي الصَّحْوِ. And as for following this when the sky is clear, أو تعليق عموم الحكم العام به فما قاله مسلم. And as for using this, and then using calculations, as is now claimed today, that you use them regardless whether the sky is clear or whether it's cloudy, we just use the calculations, and we basically announce the sighting, the beginning of Ramadan and the end of Ramadan based on the calculations. فَمَا قَالُوا بِهِ مُسْلِمٌ. No Muslim on the face of the earth ever said this, okay, up until modern times. Okay, so what are the proofs, or what are the arguments for using the calculations? Okay, the first argument that this side brings, and this is more, I mean, these arguments were brought in the past, or some of them were brought in the past, but many of them are, they found voice only in modern times. First one is that they say the visual sighting is only a means to an end. It's not an act of worship in and of itself. In other words, it's not like the sighting is some kind of act of ibadah that, like wudu, where you get a special reward for doing it, and therefore it's something that has to be done in a specific way and so forth. The sighting was just to basically know that whether the month is Ramadan's beginning tomorrow or not. So it was just a means to an end, to know basically whether the month has begun or has not begun. So therefore, if it's just a means to an end, then if we find another means to also arrive at the same end, what's the problem? In other words, you look to see, is tomorrow the day I fast? And if the calculations also tell you that the moon was visible or the moon was there and so on, so you know the fast, you've just taken two routes to the same destination. So what's the issue? Okay. Second argument they bring is that this is just like calculating the prayer times. I mean, no one has a problem with calculating prayer times, right? We can tell you what time Fajr is 20 years from now. Then what's the problem with telling you when Eid will be 20 years from now? Okay. The third argument is going back to the hadith we covered last time. So there are different narrations, but this one narrated Abdullah bin Umar radiyallahu anhuma, لا تصوموا حتى تروا الهلال ولا تفطروا حتى تروه فإن أغمي عليكم فاقدروا له. Don't fast until you see the new moon, the hilal. Do not break the fast until you see it. But if the weather is cloudy, make qadr for it. Now we said that this word qadr, فَقْدِرُوا لَهُ, this is the part that amongst the Hanbalis and the other madhab, there's some difference of opinion, right? So the Hanbalis, they took qadr to mean what? Talked about this in the last class. Constraint, good. Meaning what? Which month?
The previous month.
Which is? Oh no, you're doing so well. Sha'ban. The Hanbalis, they say the meaning of فَقْدِرُوا لَهُ is meaning constrain it, based on the verse in Surah Talaq, وَمَنْ قُدِرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقُهُ فَلْيُنْفِقْ مِمَّا آتَاهُ اللَّهِ. When Allah is talking about alimony, He says for the one who is poor, his rizq is constrained, then he pays the alimony, he pays for the divorced wife, however much he can afford. So they say the meaning of فَقْدِرُوا لَهُ means constrain the month, meaning restrict the number of days. The days of what? The previous month, Sha'ban. Which means basically, in other words, the hadith is saying if it's cloudy, you can't see the moon now, you can't see the hilal. What do? The Hanbali said, the meaning of this hadith is that assume the month is 29 days, restrict the month, make it less, and that means tomorrow is going to be what? First of Ramadan. You understand? The Hanbalis alone, they said the meaning of qadr is restrict the number of days before, meaning you make Sha'ban 29 days, which means that the next day would be Ramadan. Okay? We said this incorrect, right? And the opinion of the other three schools, which is the majority opinion, is what? You complete 30 days. You assume that the moon is not there. So the Hanbalis say you should assume the moon is there, so it means tomorrow is the first day of fasting. The other madhab say no. You assume the moon is not there, and it means the next day is the 30th Sha'ban. You will treat it as Sha'ban, and the day after will be Ramadan. This clear? Covered this last time, right? Okay. So, about this hadith, and now we said there are three interpretations. The first is the opinion of the Hanbalis, which is that the meaning of qadr means restricted. The second is the meaning of estimate. فَقْدِرُوا لَهُ means to estimate it. Estimate what? Estimate Sha'ban to be 30 days. This is the view of the other madhab, and this is the correct opinion. There is a third opinion as well. What is the third opinion? The third opinion is the one that those who support calculations, they take, which is that the meaning here is فَقْدِرُوا لَهُ means calculate it. Calculate it meaning use calculations and use the astronomical tables. With me? Okay? Who had this view? In the history of Islam, there were really only, you could say, 4 scholars, maybe 5, who had this view. So out of all of the madhahib, out of all of the ulama, 4, maybe 5, who had this view. Mutarrif ibn Abdullah, he's from the Tabi'een. Okay? Although some scholars say this view is not authentic back to him, but anyway, we'll assume he has it. Yeah, the numbers are so small, we'll give it to him. Mutarrif ibn Abdullah, Ibn Surayj, who was a student of Imam al-Shafi'i, Ibn Qutayba, a famous scholar of hadith, and there are some narrations from Ibn Daqiq al-Aid and al-Subki. Okay? Now, what is the basis for their view that the meaning of the word is فَقْدِرُوا لَهُ, mean just estimate it, just calculate it? They use the hadith of Dajjal. So you know there's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ was talking about Dajjal, and he said he would remain. He came, he described what he would look like and so on. And then one of the Sahaba asked, how long will he stay on the earth? And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, what? 40 days. And then he said, one day will be like a year. One day will be like a month. One day will be like a week. and the rest will be the days like your days. Okay? So a year, a month, a week, and then 37 more days. Okay? So what was the first question that the Sahaba asked? And this shows the way the Sahaba used to think. So they said, Ya Rasulullah, قلنا Ya Rasulullah, فذلك اليوم الذي كسنا أتكفينا فيه صلاة يوم. So that day that's like a year. How will we make our prayers that day? If the day is like equal to a year, will we make the prayers like we do in a day, meaning just the 5 normal prayers, like I just pray the 5 prayers for an entire year? So the Prophet ﷺ, what did he say? He said, La, no. اقدروا له قدره. The same words. You will calculate it. You will estimate it. Okay? You will calculate it. Clear? So, they say the exact same words were used in this hadith. So based on that, we go back to the earlier hadith, and it means that when the Prophet ﷺ said that when the moon is cloudy, غُمَّ عَلَيْكُمْ فَقْدِرُوا لَهُ, mean calculate just like you calculated for when Dajjal comes. This clear? Okay? Alright, but we said last time, there are other narrations about this hadith, right? Like, I'm going to show you in a minute, but for example, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, فَأَكْمِلُوا الْعَدَدِ, so complete the number of days. فَعُدُّوا ثَلَاثِينَ, count it as 30. فَأَكْمِلُوا عِدَّةَ شَعْبَانَ ثَلَاثِينَ, count the number of days of Sha'ban 13, count it as 30. How would they, those narrations make clear what is the meaning here? The meaning is not calculated. The meaning is estimate the month of Sha'ban to be 30 days. So how do they respond? Ibn Surayj, he said, the meaning of the you have 2 hadith. One is saying calculate it, فَقْدِرُوا لَهُ, and the other was saying calculate or estimate the number of days of Sha'ban to be 30. Ibn Surayj said, for the people who are not astronomers, who are just lay people, normal people, you take the other hadith that says you count it as 30 days. So for the non-astronomers, if it's cloudy, the next day is Sha'ban, you complete 30 days, and you do as you normally do. As for the astronomer, because he's more educated, because he's got the tools, he will go with the other hadith. So one hadith is for the lay people, the farmer and the taxi driver and so on, and the other hadith is for the astronomer. The one that says فَقْدِرُوا لَهُ, calculate it, this is for the one who can calculate, which is the astronomer. He should go use the calculations and figure out whether he should fast or not. Clear? We'll get to the rebuttal in a second. Anyway, let's just understand the arguments. Clear so far or not clear? Alright. Likewise, another claim, which is weak, is that they say that the other narrations of the hadith, in fact, let's just take a look at them quickly.
But how does the scholars justify disunity? Because if you've got the masses doing the citing and the astronomers do, how do you...
Well, then it may not be disunity, because they could both end up fasting and breaking the fast on the same day. Yeah, I know. No, I know, but what I'm saying is, this is the way because understand his position. He sees all these hadiths. So here are the other narrations of the hadith. فَأَتِمُّوا الْعِدَّةَ 13. So complete the number 30, complete Sha'ban 30, not until you see the hilal, or you complete the number, fast 30. They all say the same thing basically. If you look, complete 30 days, make the number 30, and so on. Okay? So he has all these other narrations, and he has his one. So how does he combine them? Either he has to recant and take back his opinion, or he says, okay, look, all these, for you guys. As for the astronomer, he takes that one that says that you calculate 30 days. That's his way that he combines the proofs. Okay? As for the disunity, the result, and so on, this is a different story. But he has to find a way to get out of being refuted by all of these different narrations.
But because now obviously everyone's linked together a lot closer than back in those days. Well, let's say the astronomer calculates and figures out actually it's 29 days of Sha'ban.
Yeah.
Can we non-astronomers follow that person?
Yeah, Ibn Surayj was saying no.
He says no.
Okay, he was saying only for the astronomer, he's allowed to do the calculations, just for himself.
Calculations, yes, but what about acting upon those?
Just for himself.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay? So, the other point that this side says is that, so all those other narrations I showed you, that are all in Bukhari, Muslim, and the other books of hadith, they said they're all weak. They're all weak. The only one's authentic is this one that says فَقَدِرُوا لَهُ. This argument, we're not even going to waste time with it. Obviously, this is false. Clearly, it's false. The other narrations, many of them are authentic. Okay? Clear? Alright. The last proof they bring, And this one was brought by As-Subki. Okay? The other three we mentioned, Ibn Surayj, Ibn Qutayba, and Mutarrif ibn Abdullah, assuming that the claim that he said that, they all said what? You can use the sighting when, or excuse me, the sighting. You can use calculations when?
Can't see the sun.
When you can't see it, right? When it's cloudy, right? So if it's cloudy, in other words, if there was a clear sky, none of them said use calculations. You go and you'll see the moon. If you can't see the moon, you assume that it's Sha'ban is tomorrow. You'll make Sha'ban 30 days and then you'll fast, right? Only when it's cloudy. Now we don't know, okay? They said, okay, look, the moon is there. Well, I mean, it could be there, right? We can't see because it's cloudy or dust or whatever it may be. So in this case, there's no harm in someone who knows calculations to go and calculate and see. Actually, it is there. We just can't see it because of the clouds. You understand? But otherwise, if it's a clear sky, no one, even these three that we mentioned, no one said use the calculations. They all said go and look and see if you can try and see the moon. Okay? As-Subki came and he took it one step further. And he said, no, we will take the calculations over and above the visual sighting. In other words, if someone says, I saw the moon, and the astronomer says, no, it's not possible for you to see the moon. Impossible. According to my charts, blah, 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 the moon is not visible here. Subki says, no, we take the astronomer. We reject your sighting. Why? Because he said the calculations are qat'i. Qat'i means they're definitive. It's like 2 plus 2. You're going to argue with me about 2 plus 2? 2 plus 2 is 4. There's no argument. There's no debate. He said the calculations are like that. It's qat'i. Okay? As for the sighting is what? Dhanni, meaning it's speculative. Because I don't know if you have ever seen a picture of the hilal, or if you've seen the hilal. Okay? If you've seen the hilal, it's very hard to see, right? Because it's not like the crescents the kids draw in the Islamic school, right? It's like a hair, right? It's like a hair, and it's only visible for a short amount of time, 30, 40 minutes max, right at sunset, okay? So it's very difficult to see anyway. So it's very possible for someone to think he has seen it, and he hasn't, and it's not really there. Maybe he thinks it's there. So he's convinced he saw it, but he didn't really see it. Do you understand? So for As-Subki, and for the modern scholars today, because amongst the modern ulama, so for example, Ahmed Shakir, famous scholar of hadith in Egypt, Mustafa Zarqa, he was famous faqih, Hanifi faqih, and also the Fiqh Council of Europe, and many others, and also in the States, in the US, ISNA, and there's many organizations in the West that go with this. They all basically, they don't have any other argument. I mean, you saw the proofs, right? There's no hadith to back them up. The only thing they have really is this one. They say that the calculations are qat'i, it's definitive, and the sighting is speculative. So we're going to go with 2 plus 2 rather than someone saying, I think I saw it. You with me? All right? So As-Subki, he is, to my knowledge, he's the first to bring this argument. But this is now the one that they've all latched onto, and this is the one that this is their strongest proof. Clear so far? Okay. All right, so how do we respond? First one about the visual sighting, okay? When they say that the visual sighting is only a means to an end. In reality, though, this is not the case. It's not just a means to an end, meaning it's not just arbitrary. The Prophet ﷺ actually, this gets a bit complicated, but in usul, you have rulings, and then you have the cause that brings the ruling into effect. So the sabab, or the cause, for bringing the ruling of Ramadan or bringing the ruling of fasting into effect is the sighting. So the sighting is not just some arbitrary, I just need to know whether it's Ramadan tomorrow. Whether I do it by seeing the moon or calculations, one is as good as the other, no. The sighting has been made specifically the sabab that brings in or makes the fasting compulsory. Okay? So if you don't have the sighting, then you don't have the fasting. You understand? That's why if you don't see the moon, then what do? The next day is what? Sha'ban. You don't fast. No sighting, no fasting. Clear? So this argument that, no, it's just a means to an end. No, it's not a means to an end. It is the sabab. If you don't understand this one, don't worry about it. This is just usuli debate. But basically, it's the sabab, it's the cause that brings about the ruling. If the cause is not there, you don't get the ruling. Okay? So it's not just arbitrary. Clear? Second one then, what about the prayer times? They say, well, it's just like calculating prayer times. Okay, so if you can calculate prayer times, why can't you just calculate the start and end of the month? One of the scholars, Al-Qarafi, famous Maliki scholar. He has a book called Al-Furuq, which is basically he collects different issues and basically talks about the differences between them. That's hence the title Al-Furuq, the differences between this and this, this and this, and so on. So one of the points he brings is the difference, the farq, the difference between calculating the prayer times by calculation. الفرق بين قاعدة أوقات الصلوات يجوز إثباتها بالحساب والآلات وقاعدة الأهلة في الرمضانات لا يجوز إثباتها بالحساب. The difference between calculating the prayer times and calculating the sighting of the moon. Okay, so what's the difference? To make a long story short, he says the difference is that when it comes to the prayer times, the Prophet ﷺ gave us indications about the beginning and the end times for each prayer. In other words, Dhuhr begins when the sun's at this point and it ends when the sun's at this point. Asr begins when the sun's at this point and when the sun's at this point, sunset, for example, right? There's no hadith. You're not going to find any hadith or any verse that says you pray Dhuhr when you see the sun at this position, or pray Asr or pray Maghrib when you see the sun here or there. There's nothing like this. There's just indications. Look, this is the time period. This is the beginning time. This is the end time. Okay? Whether you do it using, a pole in the ground and looking at the shadow, or use calculations, or whatever it is, doesn't matter. There's nothing fixed. There's no hadith that says you have to see it. You just need to know, did the time come in? Did the time end? You with me? This is different from Ramadan. Because with Ramadan, the Prophet ﷺ made it explicitly clear. صُومُوا لِرُؤْيَتِهِ. You fast when you see it. He didn't say fast when it's Ramadan. Then that could have been ambiguous, right? If he had said fast when Ramadan begins, then you could say, okay, well, how does Ramadan begin? We can find out this way or that way. He didn't say that. He said fast when you see the moon. Break your fast when you see the moon. So there's a difference here between how we determine the beginning and the end of the month and how we determine the prayer times. Is this clear? Clear or not clear? Because this is the one you're going to hear from the layperson, right? The guys who don't know anything, they'll say, they don't know about the qat'i one. They're not going to understand that one. They will just say, it's like prayer times. Why do you guys, make such a big deal out of it? We calculate the prayer times. Why can't you calculate this? No. Because the Prophet ﷺ allowed us to use calculations to calculate the prayer times. Even some of that, they say, no, this is not allowed. But anyway, the point is that there's no harm in it. Because there's nothing, the Prophet ﷺ didn't connect the prayer times saying, you have to pray when you see the sun at this position or that. With me? Whereas with Ramadan, he made it very clear. You fast when you see the moon. With me? Alright. Then the third point. Okay, what about the hadith? This one is easy to refute, right? The other narrations make clear what is the meaning here. The meaning is not to calculate it, obviously. Okay? Nor is the meaning what the Hanabila said, which is to constrain it. The meaning is فَقْدِرُوا لَهُ, meaning you count it as 30 days of Sha'ban, as the other narrations make clear. So this one we're not going to entertain. Clear? Right? Okay. That leaves only the last one then. Okay? Or in fact, we should before we get to that one. What about Ibn Surayj's argument about one hadith is for the astronomer and one hadith is for the non-astronomer, right? How would we refute that? Without looking at the screen. One hadith, he said, this is for the person who knows how to calculate, he should calculate. As for the one who doesn't know how to calculate, well then he just counts the month as 30 days of Sha'ban.
More overwhelming for the counter.
How would you refute this? So I'm Ibn Surayj. You bring me these hadith. I say, okay, listen. The reason they're different narrations is because the Prophet ﷺ was talking to different people. For the people who are not astronomers, he said this. For the people who are astronomers, he said that.
Is there any evidence that he was speaking to different people?
Well, I have the narrations.
The fard is for everyone at the same time. So the beginning of Ramadan is for the whole ummah. You can't differentiate between.
Okay, good. Yes. We only have one religion.
The point I was saying earlier about unity, because
Unity we're going to talk about next week.
yeah, but it has to be. It's a fard. So Zohar prayer has to be calculated, but you can't suddenly say Zohar is at 10 in the morning.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, you're on the right track. Basically, there's only one religion. There's only one Islam. There's only one Sharia. It's not like there are separate rules for mathematicians and scientists and separate rules for farmers. Do you understand? The religion is the same for everybody. It's the same rules for everyone. Whether you are PhDs, or whether you are a Badu who doesn't even know how to read or write. Okay? And this is why the Prophet, Yarhamukallah, this is why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Inna ummatun ummi. We are a illiterate nation. Okay? La naktubu la nahsib. We don't write and we don't calculate. Okay? What did he mean? He didn't mean that we are literally illiterate. That it's haram to learn to read and write. Because even the Prophet ﷺ had people teach his wives how to... Oh, is this me? Sorry. Oops. This is the first time that's happened, huh? Sorry, excuse me.
Live translation from.
Yeah, I know. That's what I thought. Okay, sorry. Okay, so when the Prophet ﷺ, he said that we're an illiterate nation, it didn't mean that we're literally illiterate, because he had people come and teach his wives how to read. So he encouraged the Muslims to read and gain literacy and so on. So it doesn't mean that there's some kind of prohibition against learning how to read or math or anything like that. But what the meaning here is that our religion is not dependent on calculations. That the religion is easy. It's a universal teaching. And for something to be universal, for something to be applicable in every time, in every country, in every place, it has to be general, has to be easy, flexible. Because if it was something that required on astronomers and calculations and so on, then how are people, in the middle of the jungle going to be able to practice it? How are people on the Mongolian, plains going to be able to practice it? Islam wouldn't be able to spread far and wide and cover every civilization unless it had rules that were easy and practices that were easy and flexible enough that everyone could be covered by it. So for this reason, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, we are an illiterate nation, we don't write, we don't calculate. And then he said, Ash-shahru hakada, for the recording, and the Prophet held up his hands, with all the fingers extended, once, twice, 3 times. On the third one he made it 29, right? Aw hakada. In other words, the month is either 29 days or 30 days. It's very simple. Even a child could understand it. You don't need to be an astronomer to figure it out. Either the month is 29 or it's 30 days. How will you know? You just go and look and see if the moon is there. If it's there, khalas. If it's not, then it's 30 days. Simple. You understand? So the idea that, no, there's a separate religion for you lay people, ignorant masses, and there's another religion for the people who are more educated, who are the mathematicians and astronomers. No, there's nothing like this. There's no basis in the Sharia for this. Even in terms of men and women, the rulings for men and women, they are the same unless there's evidence to show otherwise. So if something is fard, for example, on a man, then it's also fard for a woman, unless there's evidence to show otherwise. That's why the Sahabiyat used to say, like we talked about the hadith of Waraqah, that, can we go make jihad? Because if jihad is fard on the men, then it should also be fard on the women. So they said, can we go make jihad on? And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, no, your jihad is, you make hajj. Right? So the rulings and the rules are the same for everybody, unless there's evidence to show otherwise. There's definitely no difference in terms of lay people and educated people and the rules, having different sets of rules for both groups. Clear? Okay? Alright, that leaves the last point then, which is the part about being qat'i and dhanni. Okay? And like I said, most of the modern scholars, this is all they have. The other points, the hadith, there's nothing. The point about the prayer times, Al-Qarafi, Al-Qarafi lived in the 8th century. From that time, khalas, it was crushed. He crushed that argument. Okay, it was already refuted before him, but there's no room for debate on that one. All they're left with is this one. Okay? Now, why do they say this? Keep in mind that the ulama in the past, like Al-Qarafi, Al-Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi, and so on, and many others, they were not only scholars of Sharia, they were also astronomers. So Qarafi himself was an astronomer, so he knew the science, he knew the calculations, and in spite of that, he also said, no, it's not to be used, you're supposed to use the visual sighting. The problem with I shouldn't say the problem, or the challenge that people have today, that ulama have today, is that the sciences are so vast and so detailed today that it's not realistic to expect people who are specialists in the Quran and the Sunnah and so on to also be astronomers and doctors and have, graduate level expertise and all these other sciences. It's just too much. It's just too much information. Do you understand? So what happens is, when ulama get asked on, questions about, let's say, for example, some medical issue and they need to give a fatwa, they will go to the specialists, they will go to the doctors, and they will consult with them, get the information they need, and then they'll give the fatwa. You with me? It's not realistic. I mean, some of them, there are exceptions. Like, for example, Muhammad Mukhtar Shinqiti, I heard this, I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that he was getting asked these questions about medical fatwa, so he said, I'm not answering anymore. He went to medical school, went and graduated medical school, then he came back to answer the questions. Okay, but this is exception to the rule. Then you're not going to find many like this. We'll say, khalas, let me go to medical school for 4 years, get trained, and then come back and start addressing the issue. This is not a frequent occurrence. So likewise, when it comes to this area, this field, you have these ulama who have spent, let's say, 30, 40, 50 years studying Quran and Sunnah and Fiqh and so on, and then they're not specialists in astronomy. And you have the astronomers coming and saying, look, our calculations, our models are completely precise. We could tell you the time of Ramadan and Eid for the next 50 years. He doesn't know, he hasn't been trained, so he says, khalas, I take it at face value. This guy is telling me it's precise and it's accurate. Therefore, if he's saying it's qat'i, then I say it's qat'i. And in that case, then I got something that's definite, 2 plus 2. No one can argue with it. I have sightings. Then I'll go with the calculations. You with me? Okay. However, if you look into the matter, okay, it's not qat'i. It's not qat'i at all. Okay. Without making this into like an astronomy class, when the new moon is born, when the actual new moon begins, this can be calculated. Okay. The problem is that when the new moon is born, you can't see it. It's not visible. Do you understand? When does it become visible? After how many hours does it become visible? Nobody knows. No one knows except Allah. Okay? So what they do is, from what I remember, there's 3 models. I think there are 3 main models that they use to calculate the sightings. In each model, they have to assume the number of hours between the birth of the new moon and when it becomes visible. Some say 12, some say 13, some say 15, right? So one will put 12 and then use his calculations. One will put 13, one will assume 15 and then do his calculations. You with me? Okay? So there's always assumptions in the model, because at the end you got the birth of the new moon, which is not visible, and then a certain number of hours until it becomes visible. And this period, nobody knows what it is. So where's the precision? Where's the accuracy? Do you understand? So it's not qat'i. They want to make it sound like it's qat'i, but it's not qat'i. It's not definitive at all. There's assumptions in the model, inherently in the model. With me? So the point is that we don't accept that the calculations, it's not like 2 plus 2. I mean, they make it sound like that, but it's not even close to being like that. That's why they get it wrong. Now, others have gone through it and found like examples where in this year they said it was going to be, Ramadan was going to be this day, and they were wrong. Or on this day they said Eid is going to be on this time, on this day, and they were wrong. Needless to say, they do get it wrong from time to time. Okay? The fact that they get it wrong shows the assumptions in the model. So it's not like they make it sound like it's a calculator. Like, you don't use calculator? You think it's haram to use a calculator? We're not saying we don't accept that it's this definitive, that you just put in the numbers and you pop out the answer and it's definitely this day. Clear? You guys with me? Okay? So we don't accept that it's definitive. And in fact, the Sharia has already given us 2 ways that are definitive. I mean, they're saying the calculations are definitive, but there's actually 2 ways that are definitive. One is the sighting. So you're going to go and you're going to eyeball it. Not just you have others. And again, the madhab, they differ about how many. But let's say more than one. You're going to have more than one person go and see the moon. You see it clearly. That's definitive. Or you don't see it at all. You will assume Sha'ban is 30 days and then fast the next day. That's also definitive. There's no debate there. You with me? So, it's actually the opposite of the way they framed it. They frame it like calculations are so precise, and numbskulls, you want to just go based on a sighting that may or may not be valid. We say, no, it's the other way around. The sighting will be verified, others will verify it, okay? People will go and confirm that the sighting is there. And by the way, the people who do the sightings, not like you and me. The people who usually go do the sightings, at least in the Muslim countries, are the ones who do this every month, not just in Ramadan. So there are people, at least in Saudi, for example, there are people who every month they go It's like a hobby, right? They go and they have the telescopes and so on, and they're going and doing the sightings. So they are experienced in this field. So just like you have astronomers who are specialized in their field, you have people who are doing the visual sightings who are also experienced in their field. They're specialists in that way. Do you understand? So if the specialist is saying, look, it's confirmed, we saw it, this is definitive. As opposed to a model based on assumptions that may or may not be correct. With me? Yeah.
Telescopes.
Yeah?
Is that allowed?
Why not?
Well, if you say why not for that, then
No, it's just enhancing. This is enhancing what you can see, right? It's still a visual sighting.
But it's enhancing it. This is the thing. So,
I mean, if I look like this, I can sometimes see things clear as well, right? That's.
Because without it, you may not have noticed it, and then you'd be fasting.
But it's not calculations. It's just no. But it's a tool to enhance the visual sighting. That's all. It's like going on top of a mountain, right?
I have, because mathematical equations, a lot of them have assumptions, no doubt.
No. So there's a difference between the
If we go back to the absolute basics.
No. Look, we're not saying you have to be low tech. It's not saying that. Okay, only based on the distance that your eye can see, right? I mean, you could go on a high place. Why do they go on a high place to see it? For clear visibility. The telescope just provides clear visibility, right? There's nothing wrong with that. There's a difference between telescope, which is enhancing. At the end of the day, if you have bad eyesight, you're going to have bad eyesight, whether you use a telescope or not, right? So it's not going to change what you perceive, right?
These are the arguments I've heard.
Yeah. Look,
You're using a technology to enhance that visualization, which you wouldn't have seen without the telescope. So why not go one step further?
but the calculation is not first of all, it's not technology, right? And we just said it's just equations based on assumptions. So it's not like
based on movements of the stars and the moon.
Yeah, sure, but at the end of the day, even NASA and if you look at any scientific body, they will tell you from the birth of the moon until it becomes visible, nobody knows the exact duration. Now they will tell you, but we can approximate it, right? That's fine. That's an educated guess, right? At the end of the day, approximation is a fancy word for you guessed, and you guessed based on all your years of study. But it's an educated guess. You may be right, you may be wrong, but the point is, don't tell me it's like popping in numbers in a calculator. Clear? All right. So this is one rebuttal, but there's another rebuttal to this one about it being qat'i. So before we get to that one, this one clear? Clear so far? All right. There's another way to argue against this point, okay? Which is that, let's say, for example, the astronomer comes and he says, no, but I'm telling you. So, for example, we go out and we didn't see the moon. So tomorrow Sha'ban. He says, no, but I'm telling you, according to my model, regardless of the assumptions, I'm telling you, the moon was there. Tomorrow's the first day of Ramadan. Tomorrow's the first of Ramadan. Our answer to that is, fine, I'll give it to you. Tomorrow is the first day of the astronomical month. But that's not what concerns us. What concerns us is the Sharia month, not the astronomical month. What does this mean? Okay, this argument is brought by Sheikh Haytham al-Haddad. So what he says is that, and to understand this, we need to look at an analogy. Okay, so park this, we leave this for a second, come to something else. Let's say you have a married couple, okay? And the wife, وَالْعِيَاذَ بِاللَّهِ, she goes and she commits zina with another man, okay? And she gets pregnant, she has a baby. If the husband, so generally the lineage of the child, the paternity of the child is going to be assigned to what? To the husband, okay? If the husband says, no, I'm not going to take this child, I'm not going to claim this child, I know it's not my child, then what can he do? There's a process called li'an. What's li'an? Unless the husband can bring witnesses who have seen the act of zina, the only way for him to basically say my wife has committed zina is to go through this process of li'an, which is basically he takes oaths saying that I'm telling the truth, and may the curse of Allah be upon the one who is lying. So he says, no, I claim that she committed zina, and he'll go through this several times. The wife, in order to avoid the punishment, she will also go through the same process. So they both make oaths saying, I'm telling the truth, and the person who is lying, may the curse of Allah be upon this person. Clear? At the end of this process, so let's say they both make the required number of oaths, at the end they're divorced. Obviously, they're not going to stay together. So they're divorced, they went through the process. The child then will not be ascribed to the father. The child will not be ascribed to the father. Clear? You with me? Okay. Now let's take same scenario. Husband and wife. The wife commits zina. She gets pregnant. She has the baby. Then the father and the mother, they die. They go in a car accident, for example, and they're dead. Okay, so they didn't go through the process of li'an. Okay, they're both dead, out of the picture. They didn't go through the process of li'an. And then let's say, for example, there are other children, the other brothers and sisters. Okay, so they will come and say, no, this child, he's not our brother, for example, or our sister. We have no relation to this child. This child is a child of zina, has nothing to do with us. Okay, and they say, for example, let's do a paternity test on the child. Okay, so they do a paternity test and they affirm that this child is not the father, the one who just passed away, is not the biological father of the child. Okay, what will the Sharia say? The Qadi, the judge, will say, no, this child is still ascribed to the father. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-waladu lil-firash. The child is ascribed to the marital bed, or basically to the sahib al-firash, the one who owns the bed, meaning the father. With me? So even though the paternity test has shown he has a different biological father, the Sharia will affirm a different legal father because the process of li'an hasn't gone through. And it would be dhulm to the child to remove his paternity unless he's gone through this process, unless the parents have gone through the process. You with me? So to safeguard the lineage of the child, the right that the child has to his own lineage, the Sharia will say no. We will say that he has a biological father, and at the same time we'll say he has a legal father. He has two fathers. To safeguard the rights of the child. With me? Then someone could say, well, that's crazy. That doesn't make any sense. How can you say that he has a biological father and a legal father? Who is he something this crazy? I'll give you an example of someone who did something similar. Who was that? The Prophet ﷺ. Okay? So, in the hadith narrated by Al-Bukhari, this one I need everyone to stay with me, okay? I need everyone to pay attention, alright? You know Sa'ad ibn Waqqas. Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, radiallahu anhu, he was one of the greatest of the Sahaba, right? One of the first people to become Muslim, and the Prophet ﷺ said he was one of the 10 who will be given the he was one of the 10 who was given glad tidings of paradise. And he was from the best of the Sahaba, right? Okay. Sa'ad ibn Waqqas had a brother, Utbah, okay? Utbah was not one of the best, okay? So there is khilaf about whether he was from the Sahaba. There's also khilaf whether he even became Muslim, okay? Let's assume for the time being he was not Muslim, okay? So let's not get them confused. You have Sa'ad, who is one of the best, and you have Utbah, who is not one of the best, okay? He may have been Muslim, we will assume that he was not, okay? Anyway, Utbah, later on he meets Sa'ad in Medina, and he says, you know Zam'a, this man Zam'a in Mecca, okay? Zam'a had a slave girl, and you know that in the Sharia that the master, he has rights to be intimate with the slave girl. So he said, Zam'a had a slave girl, okay? I committed zina with that slave girl in Jahiliyyah, okay? Now in Jahiliyyah, they would, even people when they committed zina, they would ascribe the children to the father, or the one they thought was the father, okay? Without getting too into the details, if people committed zina, they would bring a specialist who would basically, quote-unquote specialist, who would look for the child, look at the child, and then look at, let's say, a group of men and say, well, this child resembles so-and-so, this guy is the father, okay? So they would ascribe children of zina to the father, okay? Islam, we don't do that. In Islam, we have the hadith, the Prophet said, Al-waladu lil-firash. The child is ascribed to the bed, meaning the owner of the bed, the one who is, who it should be, considered the father. With me? Okay. So Utbah says to Sa'ad, Zam'a had a slave girl. I committed zina with that slave girl, and she had a child, she had a son. That boy is my son. So, فَقْبِضْهُ إِلَيْكَ. Okay, this is my wasiyah to you, that go and take that boy and you raise him as a father to him. Raise my son on my behalf. This is my wasiyah to you, and the last thing I ask of you. Okay, then he passed away. Clear? All right. So in the 8th year after Hijrah, when the Muslims conquered Mecca, after Fath Mecca, Sa'ad ibn Waqqas went and he took this young boy. Okay, so he grabbed the boy and he went to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, فلما كان عام الفتح أخذه سعد فقال ابن أخي عهد إلي فيه. So he went to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, this is the son of my brother. He made me give a promise that I would look after him. فَقَامَ عَبْدْ ibn Zam'a. Now Zam'a had another son, Abd. Not Abdullah, Abd. Okay? Abd ibn Zam'a, he stood up. فَقَامَ عَبْدْ ibn Zam'a فَقَالَ أَخِي وَابْنُ وَلِيدَةِ أَبِي وُلِدَ عَلَى فِرَاشِهِ. He said, no, he's my brother. Now they're fighting about the boy, right? So Abd ibn Zam'a said, no, he's my father. He's the son of my father's, he's my brother. He's the son of my father's slave girl, and he was born on my father's bed. Okay? So you understand the dispute. Sa'ad is saying, this is the child of my brother. I'm going to take him. I have rights to him. I'm going to raise him. The other one says, no, this is my brother. He's the son of my father, not this other guy, Utbah. Clear? Okay, so now they're both arguing about who has custody of the child. Okay? فتساوق إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال سعد يا رسول الله ابن أخيك قد كان, يعني what they said. So then the Prophet ﷺ, what did he say? هو لك يا عبد ابن زمعة. He is for you, يا عبد ابن زمعة. الولد للفراش وللعاهر الحجر. The boy, the child is ascribed to the bed, and for the one who commits zina is the stone. Okay? So he rules in whose favor? Abd ibn Zam'a. He says, go and you take him. Based on the hadith, right? He was born on you have two people, and because he was, it's not the marital bed, but basically the master of the slave girl, because he was born in that household, he's ascribed to the head of that household. Clear? Okay? Then what did the Prophet say? Okay? Zam'a had a son, right? Abd. He also had a daughter. What was the daughter's name? Sauda. Sauda bint Zam'a. Who is Sauda bint Zam'a? Yeah, the Prophet's wife. When Khadija passed away, radiallahu anha, the first person that the Prophet ﷺ married was who? Sauda bint Zam'a. She was also a widow. With me? So the Prophet ﷺ, now, so this child, the brother of Abd, he's also the brother of Sauda. With me? So the Prophet ﷺ said, هو لك يا عبد ibn Zam'a. Take him, he's yours, ya Abd ibn Zam'a. Then he said to Sauda bin Zam'a, ثم قال لسوداء بن زمعة احتجبي منه. Wear hijab from this boy. Why would she wear hijab? It's her brother, right? Why would a sister wear hijab from her brother? He said, wear hijab from him. لما رأى من شبهه بعتبة. Because of what the Prophet saw from the resemblance of Utbah. Meaning, he didn't have the paternity test. But he can see from the child, this is Utbah's child. Sa'ad is right. It's Utbah's child. Do you understand? فَمَا رَآهَا حَتَّى لَقِيَ اللَّهِ. So that child never saw Sauda out of hijab. What's the point? The Prophet ﷺ ascribed two fathers. He knew the biological father is Utbah, but he said, no, the legal father is Zam'a. Khalas, you take him. He's yours. So he gave the custody to Abd ibn Zam'a. Zam'a is the legal father, and you're his relative. But he affirmed there was a separate biological father. That's why he told Sauda, wear hijab. You with me? Clear? So the Prophet affirmed there's a biological father, and there's a shari'i, a legal father. Now you could say, okay, that's a nice story. What does this have to do with Ramadan? We're talking about Ramadan. So in the same way, and here's the hadith, in the same way, there is an astronomical month, and there is a legal month. Which is the month we're meant to fast? The legal month, not the astronomical month. So if, for example, we go out, we don't see the moon on the 29th, we say, khalas, tomorrow is the day of Sha'ban, 30th day of Sha'ban. The astronomer will come and say, no, I'm telling you, based on my calculations, it's tomorrow is the first of Ramadan. We say, look, we give it to you, I believe you. The astronomical month of Ramadan is tomorrow. I don't care about the astronomical month. I care about the legal month. Because for me, the fasting is based on the legal month, not the astronomical month. Clear or not clear? Did I lose you? With me? So there's an astronomical month and there is a legal month. So when the astronomers are saying, no, but I'm telling you, I stake my life on it. The astronomical, it's beginning tomorrow. Khalas, okay, I get it. The astronomical month, you say, begins tomorrow. Doesn't matter for us. We have a legal month, and the legal month is defined by seeing the moon, or if we don't see the moon, we assume 30 days for Sha'ban. End of story. Is this clear? Clear?
Was there any link between Zama and Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas? And any biological link?
No biological
They were
link, no.
separate people. They
Yeah,
were
completely separate.
families.
Yeah. Is clear? Okay, any questions? سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك